I believe context is important, so the first few minutes of this video are me going through my Pokemon journey up to Scarlet and Violet, but if you would like to jump to my thoughts about the games right away, click this timestamp in the description. As we near the launch of Pokemon Legends ZA, it feels appropriate to me to review Scarlet and Violet in their entirety. In total, unlike a review of Mario Kart World from a few months ago, I have wholeheartedly loved my time with Scarlet and Violet, as I have mentioned numerous times on this channel, including an entire video from summer 2024 titled Playing Pokemon as an Adult. To briefly summarize my history with Pokemon, I grew up in the early 2000s. Like every other kid, consuming every form of Pokemon media thrown my way. As a much younger child, the anime was my bread and butter, getting ready to watch it every week with my mom, getting excited at the title card, testing my knowledge with who's that Pokemon, and truthfully, I don't think I could ever find daily peace like I did as that era of a kid, but such is adulthood. Still as a kid, but in the early stages of my future career as a collector, the cards were of the utmost importance to me and my friends, and there's a lot I would give to have that original collection back. Not out of monetary value, but I was there to collect Base Set, Jungle, Fossil, Rocket, Gym Heroes, Gym Challenge, all those iconic sets. I have since completed them as an adult, but they weren't my cards growing up. I just bought them all back. I had a Pokemon skateboard. I remember seeing one of Pokemon 2000 or Pokemon Forever with my dad in theaters, only to have them both on DVD as soon as I could. I was a stereotypical Pokemon kid in America, and as a current video game collector, it's kind of funny that my last major way of consuming Pokemon media was through the video games. The intended way, the original way, so to speak. I remember going to a Cub Scout event where we were going bowling a few towns over, and in the lead up to that, my dad and I took a trip to Target, and lo and behold, it was there. A brand new copy of Pokemon Fire Red on the top row of the glass case in Target. $19.99. I was huge into Target gift cards at the time. Like, this must be 2005, 2006. So anytime I had a birthday or Christmas or whatever, I would ask for Target gift cards so I can pay for my Pokemon card tins and my baseball cards when I took my periodic trips to Target with my mom. But this time, with my dad, my Target gift card was at home. I knew I had a $25 gift card at home and the game was $20, so he said, I'll buy it and you can just give me the gift card when we get home. I seem to remember being a little annoyed at the fact I had technically lost $5 that way. Again, I was under 10 years old, but one, I would come to learn the economics of gift cards as an adult, and two, I didn't care. I had Pokemon Fire Red, and that thing came everywhere with me. I mentioned we were going to a Cub Scout bowling event, and it was there with me, and I was bragging to everyone about it. Oh, look what Max has, he's playing Pokemon. That was childlike innocence, and in hindsight, that was awesome. I never beat the game because my pea-sized brain didn't know what the heck I was doing, but it didn't matter. I had played a Pokemon video game. For my birthday in 2007, I got my first DS, a black DS Lite, and my second Pokemon game, Pokemon Diamond. My best friend had it already. I must have saw it, and that must have been an easy decision for me to tell my parents that I wanted that for my birthday, and it must have been pretty easy for them to be like, well, we know what we're getting him. Pokemon aside, my memories from that birthday are so vivid that it literally might be the best birthday that I've ever had. I set up my DS, booted up Diamond for just a little bit, left it on the charger, and then went to school, just for it to be exactly where I left it when I got home. I must have played that thing all night, and by tradition, I probably had to put it down when we went to family dinner for my birthday. Speaking of vivid memories, I have no idea where we went for dinner, but I don't care. That birthday was all about Pokemon. I played the life out of that game with my friend. I remember sleeping over his house when I caught Dialga, named it after him, and I'm pretty sure I beat Cynthia that night with his help. For the record, everyone talks about how Cynthia is so hard, but my Pokemon must have been majorly overleveled because I don't ever recall having a hard time with her specifically. Infernape probably just swept the whole damn thing, but yeah, I played that game nonstop. And this is where I wish I could tell you that I then contemplated getting Pokemon Platinum. Then I got Heart Gold when it released, and then I was wowed when Black and White came out and so on, but I can't. I can't tell you those things because by the time, probably when Heart Gold and Soul Silver came out, if not Heart Gold, then definitely by Black and White, it wasn't cool to play Pokemon anymore. Maybe not totally by peer pressure, but I stopped playing Pokemon. I even sold my Fire Red and Diamond to GameStop. You already know how that goes. But my memory after that 2008, 2009 era are a little blurry, but gaming-wise, I don't really have any idea what I played. Maybe it was the Wii era and Mario Super Sluggers and Raw Sports, but I know for certain I had a gaming renaissance when NHL 12 was out, because that was the next thing I played with the same friend who helped me beat Diamond. There's a small timeline where I am or become an Xbox or PC gamer, but at some point, I had gone to 360 just to play NHL and MLB 2K and FIFA, even though I didn't really like soccer, and that was my gaming career at that point. But yeah, Pokemon was out of my view. I was a teenager, and that was childish. Pokemon was childish. Part of me probably felt like that part of me died, even if I didn't feel that way at the time. But yeah, I didn't really game in general after that. I got my yearly sports games, but genuinely, I was probably more interested in replaying PS2 games from my childhood. My first year living on campus in college, that same friend and I played NHL in our dorm until December 2018, when I saw my suite mate with a poorly self-modded Game Boy Color and a copy of one of the 6 original Game Boy or Game Boy Color Pokemon games. I don't remember which one, but something in me was unlocked. We like to say that in 2025. It unlocked something in me, and no joke, that did. I didn't have a Game Boy Color growing up. I had a Game Boy Advance, but I had always wanted a Game Boy Color. It was less than a week after that I started collecting video games, hitting up 2 or 3 of the retro game stores in the area, and I was back on it. My return was nigh. In those pre-pandemic days, Pokemon games were cheap, and I rebought all of them. I got all of them before I needed. I got all the ones I needed before they skyrocketed. So for reference, I got Emerald for $30, which is tragic. I was so focused on buying back old games that I wasn't interested in a Switch. Not that I even really knew what it was at the time. Again, I had been out of the gaming scene for like 10 years. I didn't even know what a Wii U was, for example, but anyway, I say all this because I skipped Sword and Shield, even though I saw my friend playing it daily in our dorm. The pandemic happened, I discovered Scott the Woz, I learned a lot about the state of gaming and all that, and in 2021, it was time for me to watch my first Nintendo Direct, or more precisely, the 2021 Pokemon Presents. My appreciation for Pokemon had returned, which started a year before collecting the game, since I had spent about a year recollecting the cards, but anyway, it was the 25th anniversary of Pokemon. It was time for me to see what was going on. And what did they show off? Diamond and Pearl remakes. It was probably getting leaked at the time, but it was a match made in heaven. The game I spent the most time with getting remade for a platform I was about to get into. It was already perfect, but it was then made even more perfect that the Switch OLED was announced. Perfect Pokemon games for me, and a brand new Switch model. I'm sold. I won't open the can of worms that is defending Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, but I'll just say that people wanted remakes, and they got remakes. I loved replaying those games, once with a normal team and once with an all Bidoof team, and even though people hate those games, I'll be honest, I love them. My nostalgia glasses were on. They were the first games I played on my first Switch, and I was happy. Y'all can hate them all you want, but for someone who isn't at all in tune with tech specs or what have you, I love them, so you can back off. Legends Arceus came and went. I liked it, not loved it, especially that final fight, like Jesus H, but it was then time for me to play my first new mainline Pokemon games, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. I'm fully into the Pokemon and Nintendo space now, and these were no-brainers for me. As someone who grew up with 2D linear Pokemon games, the selling of an open world was a little daunting, but it didn't matter. I was excited, and I couldn't wait to play my first new mainline Pokemon games in 20 years. And boy, was it worth the wait. If it wasn't evident, I am easily impressed by graphics. I watch Nintendo Directs now, and I see all the HD 2D remakes, and I am in literal awe. Eyes and mouth watering, even though I will literally not play those RPGs. But now that I think about it, how would Fire Red look in that style? It would never happen since we've unlocked the new open world for Pokemon, but like, a guy can dream, can't he? Anyway, I say that because I am not technologically savvy, and I do not have high standards for how things run or look. Perhaps one good thing to not being a consistent gamer for my whole life, I play games to play games, and I don't look at them from a tech perspective. If I had fun, I had fun. My most time spent in any game ever might have been MLB 11 The Show, and look at that game. It looks like shit. I know the reviews of Scarlet and Violet all touch upon that one thing, and I will too, but I say all this to stress that 1, you should separate the game from the technology, and 2, that's what I'm doing in my review. I'll talk about how the game runs toward the end, but most, and I mean most, of my thoughts on this game are about the game, not the frame rate. Too many reviews focus solely on that frame rate, but not in this retrospective. Anyway, I said in the beginning, but I have truly loved my time in Scarlet and Violet. As you hopefully listened to in the context portion of this video, I really do love these games, but we still have much to talk about. But let's start with why we get new Pokemon games. The new Pokemon. Starting with the starters, I like them a lot. I don't think they're the most carryable Pokemon, but I think I've now played through these games, each doing a solo run with each starter, and it is possible. Fuecoco and Skeledirge are easily my favorites. 1, because I always choose the fire type, but 2, I mean, I just look at the little guy. Goofy looking is fine, and Torch Song honestly goes way harder than it should have. My second playthrough, that starter was Quaxley to Quaquaval, since I don't typically choose the grass type, and honestly, Quaquaval was serviceable enough. His signature move being a speed boosting move didn't do a ton for me, but when I later learned about his hidden ability, I was like, oh, this goes hard too. Side note, this game taught me a lot about like IVs and hidden abilities and natures and all that, so there's that. But anyway, I wanted to cosplay as Quaxley at the last convention I went to, but that didn't happen. There's still time for me to be a swashbuckling duck. Last is Sprigatito to Meowscarada, and I was honestly dreading that playthrough, but I was quite wrong. Not my favorite design, but gameplay-wise, Meowscarada is a lot of fun and a lot better than I expected. So this trio might not be the Bulbasaur, Charmander, and Squirtle, but to say these Pokemon aren't going to be fan favorites for a long time to go, that would be just straight wrong. At least Fuecoco started on 2 legs and ended on 4 legs. That's a thing, right? Otherwise, without getting into type diversity or mechanically sound options, I personally really like all the supporting Pokemon. We have plenty of goofy, some meme Pokemon, some stupid evolution Pokemon, some forgettable stuff. Overall, like a good mix of everything. My top 10 lines would probably look something like, in Pokedex order, Lechonk, Pawmi, Fido, Ceruledge, Bellibolt, Kilowattrel, Orthworm, Flamigo, Dondozo, and Tatsugiri. I don't personally have strong opinions on the legendaries, the box art legendaries, or the Paradox Pokemon, but they're all unique and serviceable enough that I think they're pretty cool. I don't think future Pokemon necessarily make sense canonically, unless it's technically an alternate timeline, but regardless, I don't think there are really many misses in the decks. Maybe Bramblin and Bramblegast, maybe what they did with Capsicum and Scovillain. Honestly, not a big fan of the Dung Rolling Rellor, but that's just me. Along with new Pokemon, we get new mechanics, and my view here might be a little skewed since I haven't played Gen 6 through 8 to have a gimmick, so to speak, but maybe that makes the Terra type thing good to not have context or anything to compare it to. When they were showing off the Terra types, I'll be honest, I thought they were so stupid and so stupid looking. Maybe I thought it was a little interesting, but either it was my scare of trying new things or the idea of being forced into a new mechanic, which, for the record, you are not at all forced into unless you do Terra raids. More on that in a second. But honestly, aside from how they look with these silly, though well-detailed crystals on their head, I actually really like the type-changing mechanic. Not sure how it translates competitively, though it either, 1, is totally stupid, or 2, it actually makes for some cool switch-ups. But in the event I have a competitive player in my comments, you can let me know. But as a mechanic, I gotta say I really like the Terra typing. I think the DLC story is maybe a little underwhelming as you discover the origin of Terra stuff, but again, as a mechanic, I'm a big fan, and we'll see how I respond to Mega Evolutions as I discover them for the first time with Legends ZA. One thing I will mention about Terra stuff are the Terra raids, which you probably have seen me do on the screen, which are basically opportunities to take down beefed up Pokemon with alternate Terra types. And if you want to know what I love most about these games, it's probably Terra raids. Similar to, I think they're called Dynamax raids in Sword and Shield, you take on these Pokemon with boosted HP, sometimes competitive movesets and alternate typing, and while the easy ones are really easy, I love the challenge you get with daily 6-star raids. So much so that when I have a lull in between games I'm playing, I'm just daily grinding my 6-star raids, and that was so much fun to me. I like solving the puzzle of how to defeat this monster beast that has a typing I don't know what to do with. And it was also cool to see the community get really creative with how to beat the event 7-star raids. I will say there are a lot of Pokemon that aren't natively found in the region, but can be transferred in. So if there's support to have Pokemon A, B, C moved to the game, I would have liked more raid events for those types of Pokemon. So for example, getting a Terra raid event for Arceus would have been cool since you can transfer him in, you just can't find him natively. That's just an example, but I think you catch my drift. I think there should have been done more with them, but I got way more than my money's worth doing Terra raids. I think I've cleared all of my crystals on the map at least once, and then I learned how to reset them. Anyway, moving on. I think one truly underrated part of this game is its story, which seems a little silly for a Pokemon game, but for those of you who are Gen 1ers, Kanto doesn't have a story. This, on the other hand, we get not one, not two, but 3 storylines, each with varying levels of funness. The 3 main storylines are the regular Pokemon Victory Road 8 badges, Elite Four, Champion, etc., albeit with a fun twist at the end, the HM storyline and the Team Star storyline, all of which converge to the main story at the end. Starting with the Victory Road storyline, granted there isn't a lot of story in this specific part that makes it different from other Pokemon games, but I think the characters you meet along the way are instantly memorable. Looking at the gym leaders, Brassius is a funny, uptight guy. Ayano is a perfect representation of modern streaming culture. Kofu is a fun, jolly guy. Rhyme is a good departure with the double battles that aren't super prevalent in the base game. I think Tulip is an easy character to hate, but she isn't bad at all, despite the weird vibe she gives. Grusha is a great final badge battle against ice types, and of course, how can we forget Larry? So relatable, and probably the best character in this entire game. The only one I left off is the first gym, the bug type Katie, but like 7 out of 8 memorable gym leaders is a damn good rate in my opinion. I also like the Elite Four and Champion how they sort of follow your progress like all story long. Rika is very motivating. Poppy is just funny as hell being an actual toddler. Larry returning is the best plot twist ever. Hassel is a funny character in my opinion, and I think the Champion Gita is very give or take, but unlike most games, she's not the final battle. It's actually Nimona, who is your partner throughout the entire game, a la your rival Blue in Pokemon Red and Blue. I'll just say that I love her character the whole way through, and I don't think there are a few good adjectives that would set her apart from others in the game, but if you played the game and were sick of Nimona, I don't know what to tell you. I'm a super big fan of her. I'll go over the Team Star storyline that basically revolves around Penny and Clavel and bullying, and it's alright. I like the stab at being creative, but it's not a very rewarding storyline. But granted, I'm also not the target audience of a Pokemon game for children who might be learning about bullying. I don't know. It's a fine storyline, but anytime I play through Scarlet and Violet, doing the Team Star bases is my least favorite part, especially with the silly mechanics to get to the battle. But granted, that weird mechanic is there to make sure you're ready to take on the Team Star leader for that base, but it's whatever. On the other hand, though, the HM storyline has to be one of the most creative and best ways to involve HM usage. For those of you who have only played recent Pokemon games, basically, we had to suffer teaching our Pokemon moves like Cut and Fly back in the day, which usually led to, say, every Pokemon Diamond team having a Babero on it, since that phony guy could learn everything. I don't know exactly when it changed because I was gone for so long, but at some point, the Pokemon Company gave in, or Game Freak, I should say, gave in and made the HM/traversal system easier, with you only needing to do certain things story-wise to unlock things like Cut and Fly. In this game, the HM storyline follows Arvin as he tries to basically revive his Mabostiff, who is a dog, trying to revive Mabostiff from basically near death. And you do this by finding Titans who have gotten huge by eating too much Herba Mystica. Get it? HM? Herba Mystica? Now you see, it was a fun surprise when I finally figured it out. But the Herba Mystica unlocks your box art dragon's abilities to run faster, jump higher, swim, glide, and climb, and 2, save the dragon and Arvin's dog, restoring a lot of their lost power. In my opinion, I initially hated Arvin because he's a weird, whiny baby, and I thought he was a bad guy based on the first HM completion cutscene. And while I thought the story was a little silly, I grew to really appreciate it in subsequent playthroughs. Both the Terror Raid-like battles to get the HMs, as well as reviving the boss Diff, because honestly, he's a pretty cool Pokemon. I think I used him in my second playthrough. In the Team Star storyline, you battle Penny to end that chapter, and in this storyline, you battle Arvin to end that chapter, which, might I add, is probably the hardest of the three final battles. So, along with Nimona in the Victory Road chapter, you've essentially completed the main game by beating your three best friends, which is a fun story piece there. I metaphorically put main in quotations because once you've done those three battles, you get to go to the depths to finish the base game, unlocking the Paradox Pokemon for your game and unlocking probably the coolest battle in Pokemon history in my incomplete opinion, having not played every game. But basically, you trek all the way down the great crater of Paldea that ominously sits in the center of the map the whole game, and once you get to the bottom, you meet the Pokemon professor that has guided your journey the whole way through and is conveniently the mom or dad of Arvin, depending on the version you play, and you battle them. There's a story twist in there that I don't want to give away, but let me tell you that this battle is absolutely epic. Visually, even on Switch 1, my goodness, the background to this battle is stunning in every way. And the battle itself, even if the very last leg is a little cheesed, is no pushover. Maybe it's not Diamond and Pearl Cynthia levels, but talk about the perfect amount of difficulty. I would recommend this game just to do that battle, so I'll let that say something. All three storylines happen within some distance in a literary sense of the school you're attending, so along with all of this, there are some fun side quests to befriend teachers, get free experience candy for answering questions to, which I'll add for a new Pokemon player. These are great opportunities to learn pieces about the game and mechanics and just do stuff, I guess. I won't get too deep into it, but the DLC story is also decent, with the first part being good story-wise and has a good amount of cultural or pseudo-cultural references that I think makes it very interesting. And the second wave being all about learning about where Terra stuff came from, and two, being hard as hell in terms of battling. You can unlock both waves the second you complete the admittedly quite long tutorial section, and if you try and do anything in the second wave right away, the wild Pokemon will literally just crush you, so that's kind of funny. Story-wise, I think the first wave is better, but gameplay-wise, I'll give that cake to the second wave. Is it worth $35? I mean, the movement to paying for DLC is another thing to discuss entirely, but I think if you like the main game, you'll like the DLC, even if it isn't quite the shebang that, say, Black 2 is to Black, but that's not really a comment on the game. DLC, I'll give it a 7 or 8 out of 10. Of course, the biggest changes to the Pokemon gameplay is the fully open world. I think I laid Mario Kart World out for, one, being a game that shouldn't be open world, and two, having a bad open world. But for Pokemon, this was a great direction. Again, I grew up with very linear Pokemon, and my pea-sized brain gets scared at the thought of having too much available to do at once. But honestly, I really appreciate it. Scenery-wise, the game has a good mix of different biomes, landscapes, I guess you can call them, but all the major locations of Paldea are really nice. Even in the DLC, they don't do any of the locations wrong, so to speak. So, yeah, for a game that makes sense to be open world, this was a great foray into it. Perhaps Legends Arceus walked so Scarlet and Violet could run, but it's fine. The only criticism I have here is that the story doesn't scale at all, so even though the landscape is open world, the story is not really. For example, no matter how many badges you have, Katie's gym will always be the weakest, and Grush's gym will always be the strongest. And similarly, wild Pokemon don't scale, but overall, I don't know if there's a solid answer to all of this. For example, if you have 8 badges, are the starting routes magically supposed to have level 50s? Granted, the gyms and story pieces definitely should scale, but then if the wild Pokemon don't scale, does it make sense that you could walk through level 50 wild Pokemon to get to a level 20 gym? I don't know. I think there's an answer to all of this, even if I don't readily have one, but perhaps the whole world scales based on every 2 badges you have? If it's open world, every Pokemon should be able to be found as initially intended, but maybe Salamence can't be found in the wild with less than 4 badges, but Bagon can? I don't know. Again, I don't really have an answer to this, but the idea of having 40,320 different ways to take on the 8 gyms is very appealing when each gym changes based on the number of badges you have. I'm rambling at this point, but yeah, I can take some points off for not great game scaling. But again, I don't think the answer is as straightforward as it might be, but I don't know. And now we get to the point in the video you came for, the performance. As I said, my standards for a good-looking game are quite low. I don't have a strong technological background, so to me, it is very easy for me to set a game's performance aside. But I understand that this is one of those things that once you understand game performance, you can't unsee it. Kind of like understanding Hollywood movie magic and not being able to unsee obvious CGI, it kind of ruins it, honestly. So I get it, even if it doesn't seriously impact my views of this specific game. Call me a Nintendo fanboy, a Pokemon fanboy, whatever. I don't care. With that said, having played the game on Switch 2, I understand the hate a little bit on Switch 1, but let me talk about that first. Playing on Switch 1, I don't think the game necessarily looks horrible, but I can completely understand the hate on the frame rate. In my opinion, this game is meant mainly for kids coming into Pokemon, and they wouldn't notice that type of thing. So that holds a little bit of weight for me. But man, there are some areas of the base game that just cannot handle it. My biggest problem was always at Castle Royale Lake, where the frame drops would be horrible. Not that you're watching that right now because I'm playing on Switch 2, but mostly because of the water. It's bad. When I did the aforementioned raid farming, I dreaded having a raid crystal spawn around there because even with the DLC's ability to allow you to fly, it would take forever and would look horrible just to get to the damn crystal. That was painful, but again, that was only one area where the frame drops were horrendous. A lot of other people mentioned Tag Tree Thicket as another bad spot, but all in all, I don't think the game across the board runs poorly enough to warrant all the hate. Is this the most beautiful game ever? No. But at that point in the Switch's lifetime, if you wanted to play games that ran perfectly, you probably aren't playing a Switch. This game tested the Switch's capabilities, and both the game and Switch failed. They tried. Is it good for a huge company like the Pokemon Company and Game Freak? No, but is it the best running game ever? No, but again, are you playing a game for the frame rate or for the experience? Too many people got blinded by the honestly not that bad frame rate drops in a finite number of areas, and I think there's been a genuinely unfair criticism of this game. I think that's been a genuinely unfair criticism of this game. Maybe it's me, maybe I like the game too much, but at worst, I would call Scarlet and Violet on Switch 1 serviceable. And I will take serviceable performance for a game that is otherwise fantastic. That's where you and I may differ, but this is my review. On Switch 2, though, we've got a different game. In the 2.5 years from when the game's launched to when the Switch 2 came out, I have still learned nothing about frame rate, but I did learn how this game was supposed to run. I will admit some defeat here, but several other people have said the same, that Scarlet and Violet on Switch 2 runs so well in comparison that these games feel like launch titles. And that's maybe why I'm making this video. Hearing that these games would be getting a free boost, I was extremely excited to play through this at least once, and if it wasn't for Mario Kart World and Donkey Kong Bonanza and my New Year's resolution to try and play new games instead of the same thing over and over again, boy, would I have played through this another 10 times on Switch 2. Granted, I did play through it like 10 times on Switch 1, but the difference in Switch 1 to Switch 2 is not insignificant. If you have the opportunity to play this game on Switch 2, do it, but I will not budge from the fact that this is still a good Switch 1 game. Is this game worth buying a $450 console to do so? Probably not, but regardless, I've played through this game at least like 10 times now, doing different challenges across both versions, across both systems. So my biggest takeaway is play this game no matter what. If you have it in your childlike heart, I mean, you're playing Pokemon, aren't you? If you have it in your childlike heart to set aside par, not subpar, but par game performance on Switch 1, I think Scarlet and Violet are masterpieces in the mainline Pokemon games. They have not deserved the hate they have received, And I believe this game can be just as memorable for a child's first Pokemon experience as it was for me as an adult playing his first new mainline Pokemon game in almost 20 years. In my opinion, I could not have had a better re-entry into the series, but it wasn't your heart and love for games speaking when you said these games ran like it was your head. Play games to feel something, not to analyze something. And don't let your view of a game be ruined by a view of performance. With all this in mind, my final rating for Pokemon Scarlet and Pokemon Violet as video game experiences on both Switch 1 and Switch 2 is a 9 out of 10.